Glad to stay with us. Access Bank has entered into a binding agreement to acquire 100% of Bidvest Bank, a South African financial services provider. This strategic acquisition aims to strengthen Access Bank's footprint in the South African market and solidify its position as a leading Pan-African financial institution. The deal is expected to close in the second half of 2025, subject to regulatory approvals. Well, joining me for more on this, I have Nabila Mohammed, Banking Sector Analyst at Chapel Hill Denham. Thank you so much, Nabila, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning to you too. Well, I'd like us to talk a bit about, Bidvest Group. It's selling its banking business to Access, its financial migration business to Momentum, and also plans to sell its life business. Is there trouble? I mean, should we be worried about this purchase?
Well, to answer this question simply, I would say no. For starters, we haven't seen Access as a group record any acquisition that wasn't business accretive to the entire group or to the entire holdings. We've seen the Intercontinental story, we've seen the Diamond story, we've seen the pension acquisition as well, and all these have been business accretive to the entire group. So in my opinion, we shouldn't be worried, because if we look at the total assets of this Bidvest Bank that is to be acquired by Access, we see that it's around $665 million, which if you use 1,600 exchange rate, will be coming to around 1 trillion in total assets. And that is bigger than any of the merchant banks that we have currently in Nigeria if we're looking at their FY23 numbers in terms from a total asset standpoint. So in my view, we are yet to see Access make a wrong call when it comes to acquisitions or expanding to new terrains. So we would expect that with this expansion, they will now organically churn these assets in order for it to be business accretive to the entire group.
Interesting. Well, what does this purchase and the other recent ones, whether it is Malta, Angola, or Tanzania, mean for the bank?
Well, you've already mentioned a bit of it, which is to number one, if we're looking at the South African one, to solidify their presence. We have to know Access Bank is already present in South Africa, but with the acquisition of Bidvest, it gives them that edge, because that is a local bank that is situated and sort of really understands the business terrain in that space. So that is one. Secondly, we know that Access is on a journey to being Africa's gateway to the world, and trade is one key area that connects continents, regions. So if the group is aiming to provide that enabling platform that will encourage and enhance trading opportunities, I believe that this expansion or these acquisitions that we're seeing the group embark upon is going to reap that benefits for them. And as we know, it is part of their strategic cycle that is spanning 2023 to 2027. This is still part of the investment phase. So that is why we're seeing these activities coming out. We've seen them acquire the fourth largest bank in Mauritius. They recently expanded to Malta, as you rightly mentioned. It is part of their strategic cycle, and this phase is the investment phase, and that is why we're seeing most of these activities being announced or these disclosures being made by the group with regards to the expansion and acquisitions.
Well, talking about this expansion, it has this expansionary drive for the longest time, you can say. Now, some of its goals include being a top 5 bank in the continent and creating a universal payments gateway to dominate international trade and inter-African payments. I know you've sort of alluded to some of those things, but how well on track is it to achieving this? How close?
So, as I earlier mentioned, yes, they are close, and we are seeing them taking those steps. They have also disclosed that they are willing to enter the North African market, and the Malta expansion is one that will enhance Europe-African trade relations, and that is a step, I would say, in the right direction, because they are looking to sometime enter the North African market, because they do not have a presence there right now. But with that step that they've taken and through trade enabling relations, they are definitely making that or taking that step in the right direction in order to meet their long-term goal, which is to be Africa's gateway to the world. So it is beyond just Africa. We're looking outside Africa as well.
Right. Now, since I've been following Access Bank and at least have sort of consistently positioned it as a long-term investment, whether medium to long-term, and while the bank has made successful acquisitions, some argue its shareholder value hasn't fully materialized. Now, this year, Access Bank has sort of significantly underperformed its peers within the Bidvest Group. If we have a slide of the Bidvest Group, you're going to see that, whether you have FBN with 12.5% year-to-date gain, UBA 30.2%, GTCO 30.7%, Zenith 13.8%, and then you have Access Bank with just about 4.3%. Now, considering the promise made to shareholders in July during its facts behind the issue, it says it's time to eat the pie. Have you seen the pie, let alone eating it, Nabila?
That is one way to look at it, which is the year-to-date performance of the share price. But one thing that investors really should pay attention to is the trading trends in these stock prices. Entry points to these prices is very important. And let me start by saying that if you had entered the the stock in April when it was trading at 16 naira. Now if we look at Friday's close, when it closed at 24 naira 15 kobo, that is 51% gain. So looking at it year to date is one, but entry points really matter. So imagine investors that actually entered the stock in April when it was trading around 16 naira, they are already 51% up in terms of share price performance. That is one. Secondly, as you alluded to, the management did disclose that come their consolidation phase, which will start in 2025, investors or shareholders or stakeholders generally will start to reap the benefits of the expansions and acquisitions that we have seen them, because then they are going to consolidate on all these expansions and see where they can unlock more value for the stakeholders or shareholders or investors, as the case may be. So we are still expectant of that, and based on our own in-house expectations, we expect that we see them improve in their dividend payment as a form of reward to the investors going forward. And we should definitely see that the consolidation phase unlocks a lot of wealth and value accretion to shareholders generally.
Right, that's interesting. 2025 isn't far away. I mean, it's just around the corner. Now, let's move to recapitalization. What's stalling shares allotment? I mean, I've heard people talk about so many things in all of this, but talk to us. What's stalling that?
So what we are aware of is the fact that the CBN government did disclose at the bankers' dinner that a number of banks have met the capital requirements through the rights issues and public offers. And we are aware of all the banks that have come to the market already. There are Zenith Access, FBNH that is still in the market now. It's CPA as well. So the ones that came earlier, just judging by that statement, we are optimistic that we will likely see the allotments being announced soonest. At the latest, the earliest part of 2025, we should see that these allotments are due, given that CBN governor has already disclosed to us that most of these banks that have raised capital have already met the requirements even before the 2026. So judging by that statement alone, we are optimistic that the allotment exercise will not take so much time, given that the capital has been verified or has by the CBN governor.
All right, so let's just take a look at Bidvest. Give us your outlook for, the banks there, the Bidvest Group, actually.
So in terms of share performance, what we have seen most times at the end of the year is that we see the prices of these banks rally. And it's mostly investors just taking advantage or taking position because of the expectation that there would be a mouth-watering dividend announced for their full-year result. And as just looking at the precedents in terms of their interim dividend payment, we did see that most of the banks, the Bidvest specifically, with the exception of FBNH that was unable to, that is not part of the interim paying dividend bank, we did see them up their interim dividend per share. So we should expect something similar. And with that in mind, investors would definitely want to take advantage. So take advantage of this level and enter the stock, preparing for yourself for the dividend that will be paid post FY24 result announcement.
All right, thank you so much, Nabila Mohammed, Banking Sector Analyst, Chapel Hill Denham, for your thoughts on the show today.
Thank you for having me.